It's been 5 years since Godzilla 2014 released, to a strong reception from critics, but mixed reception from fans. Critics praised the tense atmosphere, cinematography, VFX and performances from Bryan Cranston, though fans complained that the film didn't show enough of Godzilla and disagreed with some of the plot points, such as Bryan Cranston's character, Joe Brody, dying at the beginning of the second act. Now it's 2019 and King of the Monsters has just released. Was it worth the wait? Well, when the film finished, I had to sit there for a minute and kind of just process what I just saw. My brain, it felt like mush. In the best possible way. If you're a fan of Godzilla or giant monsters in general, you're gonna have a blast. I had the pleasure of seeing the film at the BFI IMAX, which is the biggest cinema in Britain, and then in 4DX. And the screenings literally brought me to tears with how great they were. 4DX especially is something I'd never even imagined I'd be able to experience. I had my mouth open for the entire runtime. Every footstep shakes your seat, the gust from Ghidorah's wings blows your hair, and the splashes of water that comes from Godzilla rising out of the ocean all makes you feel like you're actually in the action. It's a thing of beauty, though I'd recommend watching the film first in IMAX as to not get distracted by the 4D elements. Ghidorah is awesome and full of personality. I was worried that they wouldn't be able to emphasize that each head has their own personality, but they did a great job. The middle head is the alpha and really pushes the other two heads. There's a point where the middle head bites and shoves the left one, following a moment where the left is curiously looking at the humans on the ground, like a cat inspecting its prey. Mothra stole every scene she was in. Not only was her design and animations absolutely beautiful, but her arc was brilliant. You genuinely feel for her, and you can see that she cares deeply about the well-being of Godzilla. The film really puts Rodan in the spotlight here, and the moment he breaks out of his volcanic prison is one of the highlights of the film. The timing, the fact you see it from the human's perspective in the town, the vibrant colour palette, it's all great. Godzilla himself was of course the thing that most people went to see, and he doesn't disappoint. He's never seemed more angry or dominant than he was in King of the Monsters. The expressions on all the monsters were top notch. They felt like actual characters in the film and not just background plot points. You can sense when one is angry, when they're confused, when they're curious, scared. It really is groundbreaking work in the art of characterizing animals. I never in a million years thought that they could make a moth look expressive, but somehow they did. The visual effects overall are very good. They put so much on screen that it's easy to see where the $200 million budget went. The characters often stand right in the center of the monster brawls, though it doesn't feel quite as real as Godzilla 2014 or Kong Skull Island. The VFX in those films were phenomenal, though there's a lot more complex scenarios in King of the Monsters, which gives the film a more fantastical vibe. The pacing is okay, the final act escalates extremely quickly. It somehow feels shorter than 2014, though it's about 10 minutes longer, which I guess is a good thing? I would have appreciated a longer runtime because there's a lot to take in, and it brushes past quite a lot. Sometimes it's quite hard to think about specific scenes because it moves so quickly. You're given a lot of information about the characters and their backstory in a very short amount of time. The characters weren't bad like many of the critics have been saying. You do become quite attached to the family and you do want them to reconnect, and there are actually a handful of emotional moments throughout the film. Madison's parents are in just as much of a conflict as the titans that stand tall above them. I really like Emma Russell's arc in the film. She seemed like the one that had the biggest inner conflict, unable to decide whether what she's doing is for the betterment of the world or for her family, and which one was more important. Kyle Chandler also did a great job as Emma's ex-husband, Mark Russell, an animal behavior expert. You can sense the desperation in his eyes when he's trying to save or reconnect with his daughter. He's really putting everything at stake for what he cares about, and it shows. Millie Bobby Brown's performance as Madison Russell is fantastic. During points her face is stricken with pure terror, or when she's upset, it really feels real. It's just a shame that the characters weren't given much to do outside of stand in a room and talk, so I really hope we do see these characters flushed out in the next entry. The music was definitely a highlight in the film. Bear McCreary's score is a thing of beauty. There's several classic tracks that have been given new life and are better than ever. With an emphasis on drums and Japanese-styled vocals, they have an oomph to them that make them stand out in the film. Mothra's track is definitely one of my favourites, though his rendition of the main theme from 1954 is absolutely breathtaking. It has an old-school quality that's almost unheard of in this day and age. Though I wish they did include the Godzilla theme from 2014. Even though it was completely original, I thought it was really cool. Two of my biggest criticisms have to be that some of the shots during the fight scenes are extremely up close and in your face, which can make it difficult to see what's actually going on. There's not many clear shots of both monsters in frame, which is a little disappointing, but the animalistic, brutal fights still leave the action as massively satisfying. And the other thing I was disappointed with was the lack of an opening sequence. Both Godzilla 2014 and Skull Island had their own classified style intro that made the monsterverse unique. Not many modern films have opening credits, so it gave the series an old school vibe that harked back to the films from Godzilla's early days in cinema. All in all, King of the Monsters is a film of epic proportions, 2019's true blockbuster. Through the criticisms, this film is still a labour of love from the fans of the genre for the fans of the genre. Mike Dougherty is a Godzilla superfan, and the attention to detail, the amount of Easter eggs and homages proves that it's for true fans of the genre. Many critics won't understand the references or the tone they were trying to go for when making the film, and whilst it's not perfect, there's major problems with the development of the characters and the quality of the writing, but in making a modern day take on the Showa style of film, they definitely succeeded in what they set out to do. So I'm going to give Godzilla King of the Monsters an 8 out of 10. Now, I'll quickly mention the critical reception to the film. It's not been great. Rotten Tomatoes, or Tomatoes if you're British, officially released the review scores on 28th of May, and by combining the scores of dozens of different critics, gave us an average score of 48%. This was met by one of the biggest backlashes I've ever seen. The score went to a high of 56%, and since has been plummeting, and now stands at 41%. However, the audience score and general reaction from the viewers are overwhelmingly positive, standing currently at 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. The general audience and positive word of mouth are what will drive the film into being a success. Though something amazing happened. When I was at my screening for King of the Monsters, there were fans everywhere, which is incredibly rare to see when you live in the UK. And best of all, you could overhear kids talking about how cool Ghidorah was and how awesome the fights were as they imitated the monster's moves. They were laughing together and taking pictures next to the posters of the Titans. They reminded me of me when I was younger, dragging my friends over to watch the old Godzilla movies. It made me happy to know that this film was introducing an entire new generation to the greatest monster franchise in history, and that's the most important thing this film has done. Their smiles are worth more than 1,000 of those critics' negative reviews. If you like this video, be sure to give us a like, it helps us out a lot. If you enjoyed King of the Monsters, be sure to subscribe to us and become a resident today, because we've got much more content to come. I've been Alistair from DangerVille, and we'll see you in the next one.